Well, there's that. Welcome back. Now we got to start this sort of school thing, if you will. Let's go back to chapter 4 because that's the chapter that I left you on. Chapter 4, the power of words in our world. Okay, so want to recap things first. The one of the very first things that we did in chapter 4 was to decide that words were symbols, if you will, symbols that represented an object, but it's not that object. Remember what happened on the whiteboard when I tried to pet the cat, okay? It's just representation. The C and the A and the T represent that feline. Sorry. The first thing we did then was to decide that that was really the definition, if you will, of the word word. The second thing we did was, I did, tore a bunch of pages out of the dictionary. Remember why I did that. A lot of folks are thinking that your vocabulary as a group of 17-year-olds in this world today is one of the smallest of all 17-year-old vocabularies in the last few hundred years. And it's problematic necessarily, but we really don't know the ramifications of that. We've decided that if you lose the words of the language, you lose the next great novel, the next great song, the next great piece of poetry, the proposal of marriage, the answers to the question in the job interview, etc. So I tore the pages out of the dictionary. Every time you didn't know a word to show you that your vocabulary was diminishing, decreasing, shrinking, going bye, bye. Oh, sorry. Hi. The next thing I did was pluck some leaves off my tree in my classroom to show you that words really grow like a bush. The newest words are at the very top. We used the music industry as an example. We have all of the brand new, music terms at the very top, and then the stuff that was falling off the bottom, dying, things like Victrola and 8-track tape player, cassette, all those words. Language morphs and it comes and it grows and it goes. Okay, remember that we also talked about the differences between the definitions of words. Every word has a denotative definition, the definition that's in the dictionary. So every word has that dictionary definition. Without that, there's just no way we could have a language. I have to know that CAT is that feline that chases the mice and runs around the corner. So the denotative definitions are really rather important so that we can all have this common semblance of a language. The other definition that some words have a very deep, emotional, visceral definition that you personally associate with them. That's the connotative definition. The connotative definition, these are the words that make us smile. If you remember my power word exercise, the demonstration of my power words, the word nature is a word that makes me smile. It's a happy place word. For me, it may not be happy for you at all. It just might not be. The connotative words are also these trigger words that trigger those emotions, anger, fear, sadness. I talked about what happened to my nephew Kyle. Very deep emotional meaning behind certain words in our world, the connotative meanings. And that's why we were starting to do that power word speech, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. The other thing we already know is that there is a few words out there that are words of jargon. Jargon. technical terms inside a sport or a job, occupation, or a hobby. Like all nurses, for instance, have nursing jargon. The word set in volleyball means something completely different than the word set in the theater. It's jargon for both of those sports or activities. Pilots have jargon, Roger, Roger. Get get a vector, Victor. Uh, my God. Okay. All right. So there's jargon in all of the hobbies. I mean, if you're into computers or gaming, there is jargon there. We did that dictionary that reminded us of that. There is also those regional terms that are specific to a geographic region, like the North or the South or the other places, East and West. Okay. Minnesota is a geographical region, right? That's why we have these terms like pop. We say pop in Minnesota. They say soda down in Iowa. If you go down to Texas, they say Coke. For everything. If you order a Coke in Texas, they say what kind. And then I usually say like the brown kind with the bubbles. And then they look at me and they go, you ain't from around here, are you, boy? Okay, so here's the thing. All regions can collect this sort of, wonderful regional vocabulary. Up here, it's a chain link fence. Down south, it's a hurricane fence. True story. The trunk of your car in England is called the boot. You go up the lift and not the elevators, etc. There's thousands of them. And again, you wrote about these. Don't forget that slang is informal language, really, used by a subset of the population. And that's going to be on the test. It's going to be important. So remember those two things. It's an informal language, one, used by a subset of the population. Okay. Don't just tell me it's how teens talk, because there's other subsets that are out there. All right. The last thing that we did in lecture, this should catch you up, is to talk about the power of words, and that we, the people, give the power to the words. So we decide what has the impact, and we talked about that when we talked about swearing. Where in our language does swearing even come from, and why words have such powerful impact. We talked about why little Jimmy could get his mouth washed out with soap. 20 years ago. But Grandma's going to freak if little Jimmy says certain words on the playground. And those words morph and they come and they go. We take the power away from those words too. So really, quite frankly, that's where we have been. Make sure for Friday's quiz that all of those terms and all of those notes are in your notebook, okay? And then I want you to get online, back to Schoology in the Chapter 4 folder, and I want you to look up the Power Word Quiz. Just look at it. It's just follow the directions. It's a cakewalk. They're going to get tougher. For instance, Friday's quiz will be a real quiz. You get one shot at it. It'll be timed, and you should get your notebooks out. All right. We'll slowly slide back into this, campers. I hope today went a lot better for you than it did for some of the teachers. I tell you what, it's been a while since since I heard some of these guys use power words. They were using their power words today. Man, I tell you what, and I can't repeat any of them here. But as soon as Schoology crashed, but it's going to get better. It's going to get better, right? And life is going to get better. Hang in there. I'm rooting for you. Keep your stick on the ice and keep that smile.